In this video, I will talk about the zeros of a function. So, question 1, f of x equals 3x squared plus 5x minus 2. Part A, you need to write an equation that can be used to find the zeros of the function. If we're trying to find the zeros of the function, we need to have that equation in factored form. Okay, when it's factored, so it's going to look like this. F of x equals, with one binomial times another binomial. Then we could set each factor equal to 0 and find the zeros of the function, which are the x-intercepts on the graph. How do I factor 3x squared plus 5x minus 2? Well, this is actually one of the harder factoring problems just because of that 3 in the front. Okay, it makes it a little more difficult. We use what we call our earmuffs or our headphones, some of you like to call it. We multiply beginning and end. The 3 and the negative 2. And we get negative 6. Okay, so what that tells us is that in order to find our two x terms, so that's right here and right here, we need to think of two numbers that multiply to negative 6 and add to 5. Okay, so those two numbers, think about that for a minute. They would be positive 6 and negative 1. Okay, 6 minus 1 is 5, right? 6 and negative 1. Multiply 6 times negative 1, you get negative 6. So what we're going to do with that is make that our x terms. 6x and negative 1x. Okay, we could put 3x squared, the first term up there. That always goes, right? The first term is always that first box. We could put the negative 2, that's always that last box. Okay, so now in order to get the outsides, we're first going to look at the top row, the 3x squared and the 6x, and think of the greatest common factor. Greatest common factor of 3 and 6 is 3. Greatest common factor of x squared and x is x. Okay, now 3x times x multiplies back to 3x squared. 3x times 2 multiplies back to 6x. X times negative 1 gets us negative 1x, and 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. So our factors are 3x minus 1 and x plus 2. Now in part B, we want to answer what are the zeros of the function. Now I will tell you on your test tomorrow, you will have to explain how to do this. So you'll tell me you need to set each of those factors equal to 0 and solve each one using inverse operations. So we'll take 3x minus 1 equals 0 and x plus 2 equals 0. And we'll use inverse operations for each one to get the correct 0. So add 1. And we have 3x equals 1. Opposite of 3 multiplied by x is divide by 3. So x equals 1/3. That means that this graph will have an x-intercept or a 0 at 1/3. X plus 2 equals 0. We subtract 2. X equals negative 2. The second 0 is negative 2. So these are the two zeros or the two x-intercepts of the function. Now I will tell you that for the next one, I made a mistake with including this. We don't really have enough information to write the full equation. I told you to use this, negative 4 and 3, in order to write the graph. So we wrote x plus 4 times x minus 3, but I will tell you that it's a more complicated graph than that. It's not just a simple parabola. So we're missing components of the graph by just using the zeros and writing that. So it wasn't really a great problem for me to include in Algebra 1. Moving on to our last question about zeros. Find the zeros of the function. So we discussed we have to set each of these factors equal to 0. X plus 2 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0, and x plus 12 equal to 0. We have to use inverse operations. So subtract 2, and we get x equals negative 2. That is the first 0 of this function. Add 3. And x equals 3, that is the next 0 of this function. Subtract 12, x equals negative 12, last 0 of this function.